The Danes, they used to be Vikings, marauding and plundering. Now, they're one of the most content societies in the world. They take life as it comes. They're practical and efficient. They're not known for their quirks and idiosyncrasies. But I've been to Denmark, and let me tell you something. They have a sense of humor, whimsy, and are full of surprises. For example, Copenhagen hosts the World Santa Claus Congress every July. And you see Santas walking around, parading around. Santa Clauses, elves, pixies, and Mrs. Clauses from all over the world descend on Denmark.
The song is called Sir the Band.
I was walking in the town square, town guild hall in Copenhagen, when I stumbled upon the procession. Here I am. I felt like I was at a trade show for Christmas workers, which I was, because these Christmas workers are here to attend workshops and network. Also in July, Copenhagen hosts an event in the Red Bull cliff diving series. Now, without any hills or even cliffs, they use the National Opera House. It is a majestic cultural institution dedicated to the rarefied art of opera. But that doesn't stop the Danes from saying, well, sure, why not? Let's have a cliff diving event off of our opera house. They even promote it, and no one seems to complain. In fact, people pack the harbor to watch. When Denmark played England in the 2020 UEFA Europe Football Cup, the Danish fans sent their English counterparts a reminder of the last time the Danes visited England. Here's something I found interesting. The city of Aarhus, instead of letting interesting old buildings fall into disrepair, they started an open-air museum dedicated to these historical buildings. Some of these buildings are over 400 years old. Others, period buildings from the 1920s and 70s. It's easier to remember the past when you can go walking around the past. And no matter where you go, you're going to find bathroom humor. And Denmark is no different, except their bathroom humor is actually rather clever. I was in a restaurant and had to use the restroom, and this is what confronted me. It gave me a good chuckle, and it's much better than for a good time call. Here's another thing. In Copenhagen, they have a statue of a merman, which is the male counterpart of a mermaid, who has 7 sons, and they are begging for their mother who just left and returned to land. The odd thing is, they put this sculpture underwater in their canals. I'm not sure snorkeling equipment should be a prerequisite to view a piece of sculpture. And then there's beer. Well, there's always beer. But unlike in America, where Budweiser signs adorn every stadium, beer in Denmark is not just a sporting event beverage. It's a cultural linchpin. One of Denmark's favorite beer, maybe their favorite, Carlsberg, is in fact owned by a not-for-profit that uses the profits from the beer company to fund art, science, and cultural projects, like the Glyptotek and the Danish Design Museum. Who knew drinking beer could make a country smarter and more sophisticated? Now here's one in northern Jutland. The town of Sæby decided to make a miniature version of itself, Mini Sæby. That's right, a miniature version of itself. It looks just like the town, but it's smaller, so it takes less time to walk around it and get to know the city. Now, here's another interesting fact. The Church of Sæby, the Sæby Church, its towers are pointed west and has been used as a navigational aid for, I suspect, ships, because planes haven't really existed for that. So, I mean, who knew? That's 2 just for Sæby. Now, if you think about it, there's tens and tens of these types of towns all around Denmark, and they probably all have their interesting little facts, which means There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of interesting little facts for me to learn when I go back to Denmark and explore. Now, if you would like to help, and you know one of these facts, please put it in the comments below. Maybe you hit the subscribe button and you can hear more of my adventures in this wonderful country. Finally, here's an interesting way of resolving a dispute. When the town of Odense canceled a project where an artist's sculpture of Hans Christian Andersen was to be part of a grander display, the sculptor took his statue and submerged it in their harbor. A not so subtle way of saying, you ought to keep your word. That is taking something to an extreme and running with it. So if you go to Denmark, and you look a Dane in the eye, and they give you one of those cozy, content look, they may be up to more mischief than you think. So my advice to you is don't look away. Take the opportunity to enjoy their unique sense of humor. Thank you. Talk you kindly.